Now in this, our first lesson on trigonometry, we're going to have a look at what's known as the trigonometric ratios. Let's consider this right-angled triangle. We'll mark the angle there as theta. So that symbol there, theta, one of the Greek letters in the alphabet there. Now, naming the sides in relation to that angle. Let's identify the sides. The hypotenuse, of course, is the longest side in a right-angled triangle. Then from that angle theta, directly opposite that we name as the opposite side. And the side next to the angle we name as the adjacent side. So let's go over it. Hypotenuse is the longest side in a right-angled triangle. And then in relation to the angle we're talking about, there we have the opposite side, and there we have the adjacent side. Now let's look at a different orientation of a right-angled triangle. There's theta. So identifying the sides, again the hypotenuse is the longest side. Then from theta, directly opposite, okay, is the opposite side, and next to theta is the adjacent side. So we need to become quite good at identifying the sides in relationship to the angle. Now, sine, cosine, and tangent. Right, these are the trigonometric ratios. Now, let's drop off the e. Okay, we call that sine. Cos, short for cosine. Tan, short for tangent. Alright, so we'll say sine, cos, and tan when we refer to these ratios. Now, sine theta equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. Cos theta equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and tan theta equals the opposite over the adjacent. Now we'll need to commit those to memory, okay, and you might be thinking, wow, a fair bit of information there, might be a bit tricky. Well, let's see how we can do that in a simple way. Some old hags can't always hide their old age, okay? Some old hags can't always hide their old age. Well, what a silly saying that is. Why are we saying that? Well, let's have a look. S-O-H. S-O-H, okay? Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. The next three letters, C-A-H. Alright, C-A-H. Cos equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And then T-O-A. Well, there's T-O-A again. Tan equals opposite over adjacent. So, that's saying some old hags will write S-O-H, okay? Some old hags can't always hide. We write C-A-H. H, right, can't always hide their old age, T-O-A. So by that silly saying, we'll actually remember the trig ratios. Right, let's look at some examples. For the triangle below, find, firstly, sine theta. Then we're going to find cos theta, and then finally, tan theta. Well, the first thing we do with trig is identify the sides. So there's our angle. The hypotenuse there is the longest side. And then from theta, directly opposite is the opposite side. And that leaves us with the adjacent side. Alright, the side next to theta. So, some old hags, S-O-H, can't always hide, C-A-H, their old age, T-O-A. So the first one there, we need to do sine theta, the ratio for sine theta. Well, the rule is that it equals OH, okay? Opposite over hypotenuse. So there's our opposite, there's our hypotenuse, so it equals 3 over 5. Now what about cos theta? Well, looking at that, cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, okay? A over H. There's our adjacent, there's our hypotenuse, so the ratio is 4 over 5. Finally, tan theta. Well, look at that. Tan theta is opposite over adjacent, O over A. So there's our opposite, there's our adjacent. So tan theta equals 3 over 4. Excellent. Well, that concludes our lesson, okay? A quick lesson there on trig ratios, but remembering that saying, some old hags can't always hide their old age.